Okay, the presentation has started. Welcome, everyone. Good day to you. My name is Lee Rivers. I work at the Institute of International Education. And I just want to thank you today for taking some time out of your day to join us for the Fulbright Opportunities for Social Work students. I know many of you act as advisors, maybe faculty, administrators in the field of social work or in adjacent fields. But today we're going to be talking about how you can encourage your students to look into this opportunity and have success through the application process. I am joined by a host of individuals that are very familiar with the field of social work as they are all practitioners in the field, professionals in the field. And I look forward to having you hear from them, as I'm not a professional in social work, but I'm excited for you to hear from those that know the field well. With that, I'd like to just kind of turn it over to my colleagues and allow them a little bit of time to introduce themselves. And we'll just go ahead and introduce ourselves in the order that you see here. So we'll start off with Carol.
Hi, all. I'm Carol Cohen. The S is not required, but it distinguishes me from the Carol Cohen that makes raincoats and other things like that. And I'm a professor at Adelphi University in New York, and also really proud to be recently appointed as the first CSWE liaison to the Fulbright programs through their Partners Outreach Project. Thanks, Lee.
My name is Peter Cito, and I'm the BSW coordinator at the Grace Abbott School of Social Work at the University of Nebraska in Omaha. And it's nice to see all the pretty faces out there, and look forward to talking more.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dishana Jayasundara, and I'm at California State University, Fresno. And I am a Fulbright, CSWE commissioner, and I will be talking from the advisor professor perspective.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Carr. I graduated in 2020 with my master's in social work from California State University, Fresno, and I was awarded a Fulbright research grant in 2020 and will be fulfilling that in 2022-2023.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ruvani Fonseca. I am currently an assistant professor at the School of Social Work at San Jose State University. And I also was able to complete a US student Fulbright research grant in Sri Lanka from 2016 to 2017. So I'll be speaking both from the perspective of someone who completed a Fulbright after having studied for their MSW, and as a professor who is currently advising students who are about to embark on Fulbrights.
Well, thank you all for being here, for taking time out of your busy lives to help out with this presentation and help lead this presentation. As I said before, my name is Lee Rivers. I work as an outreach and recruitment specialist at the Institute of International Education, specifically working with the Fulbright US student program. And as I said before, I don't have a background in the field of social work, but I can say that my wife is a CEO of a nonprofit organization that focuses on domestic violence and sexual assault here in Houston. And so she has a lot of employees of hers that work in social work, that work in the field. And I've seen a couple traits in them and in her that I think are super relevant for the Fulbright program. Many of the traits that I'm sure that you all possess as well. Empathy, just that ability to understand another person's experience and their point of view. Communication, this is both verbal and nonverbal communication. Cultural competence, as well as social justice awareness. When you're working with clients, you have to be able to effectively work across diverse backgrounds. And it requires you to be knowledgeable, respectful, and responsive to different cultural beliefs as well as practices. And also kind of have this non-judgmental attitude and appreciation for diversity. So those are all traits that translate really well into the Fulbright US student program. And I know our panelists will maybe talk a little bit more about those. But what we found is that Fulbrighters are truly a a value-driven community of change makers. And some of those core values that they share is, the belief in educational and cultural exchange, the belief in fostering mutual understanding and the power that that can have, the power of establishing lasting connections, and then developing connections and collaborating with individuals abroad. So again, you're going to hear more from our panelists about those different themes, but I think this is the perfect group to speak with because you guys already, and your students already have those traits that would make you strong Fulbrighters. All right, so let's talk a little bit about some of the basics, the history, and about the program here. The Fulbright program is the flagship educational and cultural exchange program of the U.S. government. And its whole purpose is to increase mutual understanding between people here in the United States and individuals in other countries. And the Fulbright U.S. student program provides opportunities to individuals based off academic merit and leadership potential to study, to teach, conduct research, as well as exchange ideas and contribute towards finding solutions to shared international concerns. So the Fulbright program is truly a people-to-people diplomacy program. It's a very large, complex, and dynamic program. And I look at it as sort of a four-way intersection of exchanges, because we're not only sending US students and US scholars abroad to over 140 different countries, but foreign students and scholars are coming here to the United States. The students are earning master's degrees and PhDs on your various campuses, and then professors are teaching and conducting research. So it's a massive program. We're in our 75th year or 76th year now, and we're really excited about what we've accomplished in the past, but even more excited about what these next 75 years are going to look like. This is a program that's sponsored by the U.S. Department of State, specifically the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs. And we work in partnership not only with the sponsors at the Department of State, but we also work with Fulbright commissions. These are binational commissions that we work collaboratively with in designing the different programs, in funding, and in the administration of the program. So there's a lot of people that are involved in making sure that Fulbright is successful. And just know that there's a lot of support as well for your students on numerous levels. So I kind of mentioned this before, that we work with over 140 different countries. And what that means is that as your students and as you are going on the website, the Fulbright US student website, and looking at the country summaries pages, you're going to find that no two countries are identical. And that you're going to see that different countries have various preferences, expectations, and different qualities that they're looking for in applicants. And so one of the things that you're going to be helping your students do is matching sort of who they are as an individual and where their interests lie with the opportunities that are available in that specific host country. And really, that's one of the biggest challenges with the Fulbright, is making sure that the applicant is matching the opportunity. Does that make sense? Okay. Cool. So I guess the last point is, the thing that separates this program from all the other prestigious awards that are out there is really this focus on mutual understanding. And I think in the field of social work, you all, or your students, are going to be performing work that really does speak to the mission of the program and being that citizen ambassador while abroad. So just jumping ahead, we always like to talk about our focus on equity, access, diversity, inclusion, and support. The Fulbright program, we understand that there's not one type of American, nor is there one type of American experience. We believe that all experiences have values, all backgrounds, identities, beliefs have value. And so it's our goal to make sure that this program represents the diversity that makes up the US population and makes up US higher education. And we've put resources and efforts in place to reach those audiences that may historically be underrepresented in international exchanges. So that's what this slide is all about, just showing you all that, no matter what your background is, identities are, etc., you are welcome and your students are welcome in the Fulbright US Student Program. So just jumping ahead, I just want to make sure, because this program is so large and dynamic, and it's sort of that four-way intersection of exchanges, I want to make sure that you guys are understanding what the Fulbright US Student Program eligibility requirements are. So number one, I do want to point out that this is an opportunity that's open to all fields of studies, all disciplines, all areas of interest. This is from, I know this isn't this group, but it's from the hard sciences all the way through the creative and performing arts and everything in between. Applicants that apply to the Fulbright US Student Program must be US citizens at the time of application. And applicants must have a conferred bachelor's degree or equivalent by the start of the grants, and they cannot have a PhD at the time of application. So the way that I like to talk about this is that you must have that bachelor's degree, but you can't have a PhD. And anytime between those two life events, and many years can elapse between those two events, one is eligible to apply for the Fulbright US Student Program, whether they are a recent graduate and trying to figure out what that next step is going to be post-graduation, in a graduate program, or an early career professional. So maybe you have experience, or your students, alumni have experience in the workforce for a couple of years, and they're looking at taking that experience they have professionally, marrying it with an academic interest, combining those, and then doing that project while abroad as a Fulbright scholar. That's completely welcomed from the program. I mentioned this before, but again, we're working with 140 different countries. And so what you're going to find on the website is that every country is looking for something a bit different. And so it's going to be really important that the candidate matches what that specific grant is looking for. So moving forward and kind of looking at the two overarching grant categories, keep in mind that we're going to keep things at a pretty high level today because the application hasn't officially opened for the student program yet. That doesn't happen until March 31st. And so going to be talking big picture because there's going to be a lot of resources that you and your students can tap into sort of in the interim leading up to the application opening. But let me talk a little bit about the two different types of awards. After I say that, we have about 2,200 awards that are going to be available this next academic cycle to over 140 different countries. The first of which is the Research Study Awards. Now, these are opportunities to, as I like to describe it, as build your own adventure, right? You are the candidates that are applying for this are basically telling us where it is they want to go, what it is they want to do, and why they're the ideal candidate to do that specific project in the host country. So they're proposing either independent study in that country or a research project. They may be taking courses while they're abroad as a non-degree seeking student. They could be in a graduate program abroad as a degree seeking student. There's a lot of options that sort of fall within this umbrella of study research awards. And I'm going to walk you down 4 different paths or 4 different opportunities that fall underneath this umbrella really quickly here. So the first is independent research. This is where one is developing an intellectually compelling and feasible project. They're deciding, the applicant that is deciding, what country they want to go to and where specifically they're going to be in that country. They are crafting this project based off an academic question. So their whole purpose is to come up with a solution to this academic question that they're proposing. They're also in their proposal outlining the methodology, the approach, the timeline to address their question, and identifying an affiliation, sort of an in-country host that they're going to be working with in that host country. So that's the first path, if you will, is that independent research. The second is graduate degree enrollment, where the primary activity is going to be that one is enrolled in a master's degree program abroad. So the applicant should specify the reasons why they're going to that specific country and choosing that specific university or college and program. And then they are fleshing out what specifically they're looking at gaining. So again, what is that academic question that they have surrounding the coursework that they're going to be taking and that degree they're going to be obtaining while abroad. So with this option, the applicant is expected to not only apply for the Fulbright program, but they're also applying for admission into that graduate school abroad. So it's kind of two parallel paths, two independent processes that are sort of working concurrently. So that's the second type. The third type, again, falling under this study research umbrella, is a hybrid between someone conducting research and being a non-degree seeking student. And so maybe the individual is taking some courses in methodology or a history of, or maybe some research classes, again, a non-degree seeking student at that university. And that work or that learning that's taking place in the classroom is contributing to the research that's being done outside of the classroom. And then the last category that I won't really talk about with this group is for those that are in the creative and performing arts. So whether you are a musician or a set designer or whatever it may be, there are opportunities for you or for those students within the Fulbright US student program. So that's one type of award. And I think most of you, that's probably where your interest will lie. But the other type of award, and preface by saying you have to choose one or the other, you can't select both. The other type of award are what we call English teaching assistantships. And this is where we're sending individuals abroad to be in classrooms. So these could be K through 12 institutions. For some countries, it's going to be colleges or university settings. And you're helping non-native English speakers learn the English language, as well as learn more about US culture from your perspective. So again, I'm not going to take a lot of time talking about those, what we call ETA awards, but they are also a great opportunity, that are worth looking into. So moving on rather, I want to talk a little bit about the award benefits. So with the Fulbright program, I think the biggest benefit that you won't see listed here is you become part of this elite, but not elitist network of scholars worldwide. And I know Sarah and Ruvani will kind of talk a little bit about this from their perspective, but there are well over, I think, 890,000 Fulbrighters historically. And so you become part of this network of scholars worldwide, and that can be something that could be very beneficial for you professionally, or allow you or your students to open doors of opportunity for others down the road. But we cover round trip airfare and a monthly stipend. This is determined by sort of the cost of living in that host country. It could include housing, meals, incidentals, basic accident and sickness, health insurance, or sickness benefits as well. Other benefits include, or may include rather, access to support for dependents depending on the country, research allowance, tuition may be covered, language lessons and enhancement activities, and disability-related accommodations. To that last point there, we do want to make sure that no matter what who you are and what your identities are and what your ability levels are, that you have support. And so applicants with disabilities are encouraged to apply for the program. And we actually partner with an organization called Mobility International USA. And they have a lot of great resources that at their disposal to be able to assist those that may have visible or invisible disabilities. So there's a lot of, as you can see, sort of these pre-grant and in-country benefits to the Fulbright program. And then post-grant, again, you become part of this network of scholars worldwide, or your students rather become part of this network of scholars worldwide. So you can read those benefits listed there. And there are other opportunities to become members of Fulbright associations that are really spread across the world, not just here in the United States, but there are Fulbright associations around the globe. Okay. I know that I'm going a little bit long here. So what I do want to let everyone on this call know is that there's going to be some great opportunities moving forward to get additional information. about the Fulbright US Student Program. We've highlighted a few of those opportunities. We have an upcoming overview webinar that's taking place right before the application opens on March 29th. As you can see, this is Eastern Standard Time, 2 p.m. that's going to take place on. And then again, it's getting started, where we go more in depth about how to choose the award type, either that research study award or English teaching assistantship that's going to be a good match, a good fit for you. And then we also have a lot of information that's fleshed out on the website. We work with a community of what we call Fulbright Program Advisors. There are over 1,300 what we call Fulbright Program Advisors, FPAs, at institutions across the United States. And we provide training for them to be able to help their students, not only recruit students on their campus, but help them through the advising process with the Fulbright program. So we always recommend that, students or the applicants partner with that Fulbright program advisor, as well as you as a mentor as they're going through the application process. We have great tutorial videos that are a quick way to get information about the program that's fleshed out on our webpage. And then the Getting Started page is, as the name says, a great way to get resources to get started in this process of applying for the Fulbright US Student Program. Okay, with that, I do want to say one more thing. So these kind of general tips that I have as your students are going through this process, and just some things that reviewers are looking for, is they're looking for the 3 Ps in the application. They're looking at the person, the place, and the project. Why does this project need to be done in this particular location? What is the project? Is this something that is valid? Is this something that resonates with the host country? And then also looking at the individual that's applying. Do they have the prerequisite skills to be able to do what they're proposing to do in the host country? And overall, does this project support the mission of the Fulbright program, which again is to foster mutual understanding? So always keep in mind those 3 Ps as you're guiding your students through the application process: the person, place, and project. With that, let me go ahead and turn it over to my colleague to cover some of the lessons learned as she has guided several students through the application process.
Absolutely, Lee. My name is, as I said before, Dishana Jayasundara, and I'm a faculty at Fresno State. And the model that we are going to present is just one model, that is how we assisted students to go, 3 students actually, to apply to Sri Lanka. And all 3 of us, myself, Sarah, and Ruani, presenters, will be talking kind of from that perspective, and Ruani will go beyond. We had 3 students, and out of that, 2 successfully was able to get the Fulbrights. And so just helping the process, just a little bit about Fresno State. We didn't have any model. We didn't have a student before when we applied that actually had got the research Fulbright. And so it was kind of figuring things out. But one of the first things I would advise anybody, just from the lessons we have learned, is that connect students to resources at the campus. Like Lee mentioned, there are Fulbright advisors. They have a lot of resources. They can connect things, and they can connect to other countries and different things that they have, especially because our university was tied to the international office also. So connecting them would be very important, and also identifying the university deadlines, right? So when you apply, usually universities have their own deadlines. Some universities will only allow certain students to go further, and they have that deadline that is not the same as the Fulbright deadline. And that's really important for everybody to know where they stand, where the university stands, right? And the other thing is, students usually may not have connections abroad. Even if they have connections, they may not have the right kind of connections, universities and organizations that are able to invite them. So if you are a faculty member that have a lot of connections abroad, then I would say go ahead and connect and assist the students. And if you don't, guide them to the right resources, including a Fulbright website that also has a lot of resources available in helping you connect, because the Fulbright requires that a country invite at least one letter of invitation that you provide in the application, along with the application. So that's really important. And then one of the things that's really important to know is that this is not a class assignment, and students need to know that. So we actually assisted master's level students. There are a lot of undergrads also that apply, and I believe the doctoral students can also apply. And so it's really important that students know that this is not something that you can do the night before. It takes a lot of revisions, and many eyes it's really good to have as many eyes as possible looking at it to make it. It's about there's a one page statement and then 2-page prospectus that really needs to be tightly written, right? And then ensuring that they meet the deadlines. Now, meeting the deadline does not just mean that you finish your stuff. This also requires you need, I believe it is about 2 references, and those references need to go in time. And also the letters of invitation need to come in time. Now, we were a little late when we did it. We had about 1 month when they applied. I would never recommend that to anybody. 3 months or 6 months, just because the country is making the connection, getting the letters, it takes time. And I know that with Sarah, one of the letters, one of our countries, the leading organization that is doing on trafficking, they gave the letter day after, which was not helpful to us. But we had backup, so it was okay. But that is a lesson for you all to kind of keep in mind, right? So one of the other things that I think that really helped the students write successful Fulbright applications was that we were able to connect with Ruani, who was a former Fulbright, to Sri Lanka, which is not possible all the time, but connecting with former Fulbrighters is really helpful. Now, we got lucky that Ruani also has applied to the same country, and was a Fulbrighter 2 years or a year before Sarah and them applied. But it's really good if you can connect with former Fulbrighters, if possible, people from social work, so that you understand what are some of the contexts, and what are the requirements. Like Lee mentioned, this is about exchange, and that was something that we didn't focus initially before talking to Ruan, right? So those are really important aspects. And then prepare them mentally to be their best. Now, this does not mean that you prepare them to do their best work. It's also preparing them that this is competition, right? This is highly competitive process. And it doesn't matter that you provide the best application. Sometimes you get rejected. There are 2 rounds you go to. You get reviewed at the US level and then at the country level. And the country level, at the US level, they may be looking at more scholarship side, but then in the country level, there are a lot of decisions that go into it. And so it's really important that you train the students that this is competitive, and it doesn't matter, you have the best application, you can get rejected. I think it's really important that you train students from the beginning, letting them know that. And then also one of the things that is also important is the recommendation letters as well as the invitation letters. It's really good if you can if you have a connection guiding the host country to write that invitation letter, like what needs to be in there, like what kind of resources they can provide, that needs to be there. And also for faculty who are providing recommendations for the students, it really needs to be like if somebody is going to a PhD program or applying for a faculty position, it really has to be that higher level of recommendation, showing that this person can go to another country and will be a great representative. It's not just about classes. It has to be overall, can they fit in going into another country? So that's really important. And of course, one of the mistakes we made was that, we applied to just Sri Lanka. It was after we applied, we realized that, we need to diversify target locations, right? So because it's really think about a host country. They also, like Lee said, they also want to see diversity. They want to see diversity of fields. They want to see diversity of focus, diversity of location within the US. They want to see a lot of aspects that are also diversity. So when people apply from the same university, same field, that actually minimizes their chances, because now you're actually competing for one slot within how many slots they had. So that's also something to keep in mind. Now, Sarah was selected as the Fulbright. Our other student who got in was selected as the alternate, and then one of the people dropped out and then actually was able to get it. So now I will hand it over to Sarah to talk from the student perspective.
And actually, before we jump to Sarah, what I'd like to do is just pause for just a moment. And I want to hear from Carol and then Peter, if we can sort of help kind of contextualize this for the CSWE crowd here. I meant to have them speak earlier, but got a little flustered. So Carol, can I turn it over to you for just a moment? And then after you share, then we'll turn it over to Peter, and then we'll jump to you, Sarah. It looks like you're muted right now, Carol.
I'm happy to jump in, Lee. Thanks so much. I think the part I wanted to say is rather brief and really ask and answer a little bit the question of why should the Council on Social Work Education and social work educators be so interested in promoting Fulbright Awards to social work students. Of course, Fulbright Awards are really important to a wide range of people and professions. There are 24 listed. Social work is one, but it's only one. And we believe it's underrepresented. So we really want to promote this opportunity as well as the other Fulbright opportunities. Lee, earlier, I thought it was great that you went first and described Fulbright programs as person-to-person diplomacy. It's a little daunting, a little sounding political, but it's really fitting given the words of the Fulbright program's founder and namesake, Senator J. William Fulbright, and he wrote, "Educational exchange can turn nations into people, contributing as no other forms of communication can be in humanizing international relations." Well, sounds like social work to us, right? Or that social workers can make a big contribution. In social work education, we have a really strong belief that intentional, relevant, and inclusive strategies are going to be essential to ensure that social work graduates cultivate a global perspective, every single graduate. And not everyone can do a Fulbright, not everyone can get away, but they can have some connection to this program through visitors and so on. We really want to promote that. So this session is really just one of the many steps undertaken by social work educators who are affiliated with Council on Social Work Education's Kendall Institute for International Social Work Education and the CS Commission on Global Social Work Education. We're hoping that you will share the word. We welcome students as well to this particular webinar. We know it's pitched to social work educators, but I think there's a lot of takeaways. And it really does build on the existing university-wide Fulbright coordinators that Lee mentioned. But we do believe, and people have told us, that informal mentorship and mutual support among social work educators are noted as being among the most important factors, as Dishna has just said, in choosing and making successful applications to Fulbright programs. So our work in social work is to suggest passive engagement to international collaboration, of which we think Fulbright is a really big part. Thanks, Lee. Do you want to say anything, Peter?
Yeah, just a few words. So I represent the Catherine A. Kendall Institute for International Social Work Education, which is an entity within CSWE. And so I want everyone to know that CSWE through the Kendall Institute is fully supporting this collaboration with Fulbright. So just to hear that, personally, I feel social work is a special calling and we all want to help people. And the Fulbright opportunity is a way for you to live a dream to help people in a dream country, wherever that might be. And I think it's going to be life-changing and a career enhancing. And what better way to have fun, to be in another place, to send postcards back to your friends back here so they're jealous that you're over there.
I love that. Thank you both for sharing. Who on this call still uses postcards? I know I do. I do. For a long time, I was sending them back to my grandmother when when we were all traveling. But yeah, thank you for that, Peter. That's funny. Let's go ahead and hand it over to Sarah. So who you're about to hear from now is someone that has recently gone through the Fulbright application process and has been successful and is gearing up for her time abroad. So really excited that you're going to be able to be inspired by her. And then after Sarah shares, you're going to hear from Rufani, who was a Fulbrighter. And so she can speak a little bit about that experience in country and what it's meant to her as a professional now that she's back here in the States. So with that, let me turn it over to you,
While
Sarah.
you're changing the slide, Lee, could we also mention that folks on the webinar are very welcome to post any questions or even post that you have a question. And we'll be watching that and bring those questions forward, and perhaps you can share them yourselves. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Carr. So like I said, I graduated in May 2020 with my master's in social work from Fresno State. And like Dishna, Dr. Jayasundara mentioned, mentorship was a huge part of my application process, and I would attribute the acceptance to all of the individuals who guided me through the process. So as I was thinking about like my journey in applying, I remember being in one of my first graduate classes with Dr. Jayasundara, and her just mentioning Fulbright. I really didn't know what it was before I started my grad program, but she introduced me to it and sparked that interest. And so I attended an info session in spring of 2018 or 2019, where I learned about the application process from our Fulbright student advisor. And then in the summer of 2019, several faculty from Fresno State took a group of social work students to Indonesia to present at a conference. And that was a really amazing experience for me and opened my eyes to social work globally. So after we returned from that trip to Indonesia was when I started my application process. And I forgot that we really had decided a month before it was due. So I also wouldn't recommend that. But we did it. It was quite the process. So I wanted to share about all of the different mentors I had. So I had faculty at Fresno State. I had the several colleagues that were also applying. That was really helpful. I attended the graduate writing studio at Fresno State for all of my revisions. So for my personal statement and my grant proposal, I went through at least 20 rounds of revisions of each document. And it was, I remember being at my internship in my car during lunch doing revisions. So it was quite the process and took a lot of dedication. And I think what I learned from that is just to be teachable and to be able to take feedback from a variety of individuals and be able to adjust and be open to that. So I learned that from that process of all of the revisions. And then like Dr. Jayasundara mentioned, I was able to meet with Ruani, who was a former Fulbright to Sri Lanka. And that was really helpful to hear about the cultural context of what it might be like to be in Sri Lanka and what lessons that she learned during her time. And then I also had the International Studies Student Advisor, Rashad. He was very helpful with all of the deadlines. And he also gave feedback in our proposals. I had the Fresno State Fulbright Review Committee. They did sort of an interview process and gave me feedback And then lastly, I had the Sri Lankan contacts that Dishna introduced me to, and they helped with revising my proposals, and also helped give feedback about what would be feasible in the country in terms of my research project. So that is all of the different people that really guided me along this process and all of the revisions. And here's my research topic. I will be starting in April. I'll be going to Sri Lanka as long as COVID doesn't push it off anymore. I'm hopeful that it won't, but I'll be evaluating the strengths, needs, gaps, and challenges within current efforts and direct services for victims of human trafficking in Sri Lanka. So I'm very excited, and I feel very lucky to have had all of the support from the faculty and the individuals at my university.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing, Sarah. I see that a few questions came in, so I'll address these before I turn it over to Ruvani. There was a question about whether or not the applicant chooses the country or whether that's something that's selected for them. With the Research Study Awards, you are choosing, and actually the English teaching assistantships as well, you are choosing the country. You're choosing the country, you're choosing the specific location that you want to be in. It's an independent research project. It's a, as I said before, build your own adventure. So you're telling us exactly where it is you want to go, what it is you want to do, why you're the ideal person to do that project in that specific location. So hopefully that that answers your question. And based off country needs, so it's going to also be your responsibility to do the research for the country that you're going to and see what are some of the needs, and how can you as a Fulbrighter kind of step in and maybe address some of those needs, or what is that research academic question that you have, and why are you choosing to go to that specific location? So location is very important, and defending why you're going to a specific location is extremely important as well. Let's see here. Carol, were there other questions?
Yeah, there are two quick ones.
Okay, sure.
So the other person, Jade, was asking, she's at USC, and she was interested in applying. She'd like to connect with other people. And I was suggesting in chat that she might look at the rosters to connect with people that have had social work Fulbrights, students, as well as the scholars and international scholars. And also obviously within her university, which has a lot of people working on international issues. Anything else to that?
Yeah, what I can do on the back end is I can pull up those links. So I'll pull up the directory for the Fulbright US Student Program, as well as the directory for the Scholar Program. And these are great resources to be able to get a sense of where people have gone, where they're coming from, where they've gone, and what they did. There's not tons of information that's shared there, and we can't give out phone numbers and email addresses because that's illegal. But this day and age, we're in 2022, it's pretty easy to get in touch with folks through a Google search, through LinkedIn. Let's do it professionally, through LinkedIn, through Facebook, you name it, Instagram. And as long as you reach out in a professional manner, hi, Sarah. I saw that you're a Fulbrighter or looking to go to Fulbright in Sri Lanka. My name is Lee. I'm really interested in applying for the program. Can we chat? I'd love to hear about your experience. 9 times out of 10 Fulbrighters are going to get back in touch with you. Actually, Ruvani would have been a better example. They'll get back with you and they'll be happy to share what they know. That may include application tips. It could include connecting you with somebody in the host country that they were able to work with, or they came across during their time there. So I always encourage people to talk to strangers. You're always told as a kid, don't talk to strangers, but as professionals, talking to strangers is we call that networking as professionals. So don't be afraid to cast your net as wide as possible and talk to people that you don't know, because that's how you get to know people. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Ruvani to share a little bit about her experience.
Changing, Sarah. There was a question to both you and Rivani, because I know you both had research grants. What do you really have to know about research to make that proposal? And then I'll get you some more questions afterwards.
Yes, so I see the question, what kind of research experience did I have prior to applying? So I was almost done with my master's in social work, and I had 2 or 3 research courses. And I had also, I was completing my thesis, and my thesis was on the topic of how to prevent human trafficking with youth who are in foster care. And so my research topic in my master's thesis project was related to my research interest for Fulbright as well. And I also see a direct question if I had specific interest in Sri Lanka when it came to formulating this research project. To answer that, I think I would look to Dr. Jayasundara. She has done a lot of research in Sri Lanka related to my research topic. And so after looking into her research, my project is hoping to build off of her research that she's already done in Sri Lanka. So that's how I gained interest in Sri Lanka.
Okay, so I think we might have, Ohli, would you like to say something?
Yeah, the floor is yours.
Great. So I want to be, I'm mindful of the time, and I know that I think the questions are more valuable than me repeating what other people have said. So what I will mainly highlight is, my presence is here to show that after that grueling application process that Sarah went through, you really do get to have a wonderful experience in the country that you are a Fulbrighter for. And I had a great experience in Sri Lanka. This picture is me at a rural nonprofit in the tea plantations in Sri Lanka, where I both conducted research and also served as an English teacher trainer while I was there. And it was just a wonderful experience of both living with a community that I had never really been exposed to before, even though my family's from Sri Lanka. They're not from this part of Sri Lanka. And so it was a new cultural experience for me. And also it was a really rich research experience as someone who wanted to do a PhD. You really don't have a lot of opportunities to do 9 months of independent research in another country with a visa and funding. And so for those of you who are interested, or those of you who know master's students interested in doctoral studies, this is a really excellent opportunity to further those students' research abilities and hone their interests before they go into that next step in their academic career. I would just highlight what I heard from others is that the university deadlines are very important if you're applying through a university. So I applied twice. I first applied through UC Berkeley and was a finalist, but was not selected. And then after I graduated, I applied at large. And so at large, you have a little more flexibility with deadlines because you only have to stick to the Fulbright deadlines, not the internal university deadlines as well. So keep in mind if you're applying through a university that you'll likely have to do things earlier than it says on the Fulbright website. And so you need to keep track of those things. I also want to just second the idea that it's not a class level writing project. And I heard that Sarah used the graduate writing resources at Fresno State. I also use the graduate writing resources at Berkeley. And so I would say if you're a faculty member supporting a student through this application process, don't try to support them alone. Definitely point them in the direction of all the other resources that are also available to them at your university. And then I think some of the things that weren't mentioned before, we sort of glossed over the English teaching assistant opportunity for Fulbright, but in social work, there are also many undergraduate students. We have BASW programs, and I would say that BASW students are actually really great candidates for the ETA program because it's a wonderful way to get to know another culture, it's cultural exchange, and it doesn't require maybe the level of research knowledge that you would get from a graduate program that might allow you to write the research statement. There are undergraduates who apply for the research grant, but I think in my program, in my year, the 2 ETAs in Sri Lanka, one of them was eventually going to go to medical school and the other one was interested in a social services career. And they both really found their time as ETAs as really valuable towards furthering their goals. And then advice on choosing countries, because I saw that question in the chat. I think, I have a personal connection to Sri Lanka, having parents from there, having many family members there. And so that was the obvious choice for me in terms of where I wanted to work. But if you don't have that level of connection to a specific country, it doesn't hurt to be a little bit strategic about where you apply. And so one of my colleagues who was a Fulbrighter in Sri Lanka, she knew that she wanted to do research in Asia. She knew the topic. And then she went to the Fulbright website and she looked at the admissions rates for the different countries and how many applicants had applied in previous years, how many people were selected. And she saw that Sri Lanka it's still very competitive, but it's much less competitive than India, for instance. So there's there are many more grantees in India, but there's also many, many more applicants. So if you do have flexibility, it's worthwhile to, and if your students have flexibility, it's worthwhile to actually look through and see which countries get lower application numbers. And I remember being a little annoyed because I would go to the Fulbright webinars and they would constantly point out that Sri Lanka had fewer applicants. And I didn't want them to say that to other people who were choosing, because I wanted it to be I wanted to have that same, ease of application. But they were right. Like, the Fulbright program really wants people to not over apply to certain countries and under apply to others. And so if you're flexible, that's another way to make your decision about where to go. So I think the other thing I'll just say is just be persistent. Being rejected once from the Fulbright does not mean that you didn't write a good application. It often has to do with the other people who applied at the same time as you. They may be thinking about the cohort. They may feel that they have another project that's too similar to yours in that year, but you could apply with a similar project, or you can take the year to add better affiliations, which is what I did. I got stronger connections in Sri Lanka and reapplied. And being rejected one year doesn't mean that you won't be accepted the following year if you apply again, which is what happened to me. So I think that preparing, like Dishna said, preparing students for the possibility of rejection, but also not letting that be the end of the story for them, that they can continue moving forward and they can reapply. So those are all the things I have to say. I want to leave more space for questions from the audience.
I actually have a question for you about what you just covered about reapplying for the program. It didn't cost any money, did it?
No, neither time.
Okay, that's a question that we often get. And then also, do you feel like the first time that you went through the process, like you wasted your time? Was it not worth it because we keep throwing the word rejection around, but do you feel like it was time wasted and energy wasted?
No, not at all. And I think it was mentioned that there's multiple steps to the process of being accepted as a Fulbrighter. And so even though I was at the end rejected in that I didn't do a Fulbright, I was named as a finalist. I was named as an alternate, similar to Dishna's other student. And so those are both things that I could be proud of and put on my resume and say that I got this far in this prestigious competition. So even if I had not applied again, it's still getting to that level was something to be proud of. But also because I applied first through Berkeley and then at large, having applied while I still had all the university supports definitely gave me it allowed me to create a support network at my university that I could still tap into the second time around when I was applying. So even though I wasn't applying through Berkeley, those same people who had helped me the first time through were willing to help me again. So I would say it's a good idea to apply or start your application process early, start thinking about it, connecting with people early, and then even if you apply a year later, they'll still remember you and they'll still be able to support you.
I love that. And that jives with everything I've heard from everyone else that's applied for the Fulbright program, is that they don't regret the process because the act of reflection and thinking about your goals and how Fulbright can be sort of a stepping stone to those goals really helps them get ahead when it comes to applying for professional school, graduate programs, and even jobs, because you've taken the time to articulate who you are as an individual, what it is that you're passionate about, and what direction you're moving. And most people, sadly, at all ages, don't take the time to do that. So it's a really rewarding process. And there's so many quotes out there about the journey. It's not about the destination, it's about the journey. And that could not be more true when it comes to applying for the Fulbright program. Are there other questions that have come in? Carol, I just saw that you raised your hand.
Yeah, there are two questions in the chat. that we probably can answer quickly. They're for you, I think, Lee. Can immediate family members also travel when you're a student Fulbright?
Sure. So this is going to be a response that you're going to hear a lot as you plug into the resources that are available to you through the website and through our webinars and whatnot. And Ruvani, Sarah, I know you already know what I'm going to say, but it depends. It depends. So if you're talking about, can they come with you? In most cases, probably. Whether or not there's going to be dependent support, that's probably the question there. And you can get more information on the country summaries pages of the website. Bear in mind, the application hasn't opened yet. And so what you're seeing when you go onto our website, us.fulbrightonline.org, and then go into the country's description pages, is from last year. And so all of that's going to be refreshed and new come March 31st.
So, and the other question is, and it's also to you, Lee, do students typically begin before April or just wait till April till it opens? I have a guess, and that is like, get your team together now. But please answer that question.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Carol. I love talking to freshmen and sophomores and letting them know. So just like medical school is something that students are working towards for those 4 or 5 years, just as maybe a particular job or career is something that they're working towards. Those students, graduate probably faster and maybe do a bit more externally that contributes to being successful for those types of graduate programs, professional schools, jobs. I feel like putting Fulbright out there as something to work towards only benefits them. And while you're not submitting an application, the questions that we're asking haven't changed in years. And so you can always be in that process of developing responses and tracking all those things that you're doing or your students are doing throughout their career. So the earlier you start, the better. And even if you don't hit submit that particular application cycle, you can use it next cycle.
And one more, I'm still on, yeah. Jade was asking about you going to a country that has a different national language that you don't speak. So it's my impression they let you know in advance when the grants are open, but maybe for students, there's another answer for that.
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's one that we often get, because I think a lot of people disqualify themselves when they don't need to. So language is important, right? This is a cultural exchange program. We want you to be able to interact on a hospitable level, on a hospitality level, maybe that's the better word, on a hospitality level. And that's something that can be acquired, within a year or so, or even less, depending on where you're going. So it depends. Again, here's that answer. Go to the country summaries page to get more information. But a general rule of thumb is that you need to have language skills that are commensurate to what you're proposing to do in that host country. If you're proposing to do interviews with locals and the primary language spoken is not English, then the expectation is going to be that you have a higher level of language skills than somebody that may be perhaps an ETA in that host country, or working in an environment where English is the predominant language spoken. So again, it depends, but having hospitality level language skills is always going to bode well and show a commitment to that host country. And in the application, you actually have a space where you can talk about what you're going to be doing between sort of the application deadline for Fulbright and, if selected, the time, between the time that you're submit your application and would be going abroad, what you're going to be doing to sort of bolster your language skills and understanding of the culture that you're heading to. Is that helpful?
It comes as no surprise to social workers, educators, students, and everyone else that the answer is it depends. So that's a good social work answer, really.
Lee, I have a technical question, and it's about the application process. As I recall, it's online, right? So just a suggestion, because it is online, there are certain requirements within the questions and the boxes. And I think there's like a word limit or character limit. So you want to look ahead of that. So if you do it at the last minute and you run into technical problems because you're over the word limit or character spacing, then it delays your when you press the button to submit. So you want to look at those requirements ahead of time so you give yourself enough time to make sure you meet all those technical requirements with the online application.
That's a fantastic point. You know, I didn't go into those details, but I guess the details definitely matter, as you guys do have some time to gather that information. But as Peter was just alluding to, there are two major essays that you will be submitting as a Fulbrighter, regardless of what type of award you're applying for. With the Research Study Awards, you're going to be submitting what we call a statement of grant purpose, and that's a maximum of 2 pages. That's detailing sort of the intellectually compelling and feasible project proposal. With the ETAs, that same statement of grant purpose is a maximum of 1 page. And then we also are asking for what we call a personal statement. And I like to look at this as an intellectual biography that's in narrative form. And for both the English Teaching Assistants and the Research Study Awards, this is a maximum of 1 page. So as Peter was alluding to, you definitely want to make sure that you are paying attention to what's outlined in the application. And we cover that in great detail if you go to the Getting Started page and go under each of the categories that are found there. So that's a great point. Thank you, Peter. Okay, well, it looks like we're right at time. Hopefully we were able to field the questions that came in, but if we weren't, let's do this. If for our presenters, our panelists, if you're comfortable leaving your email address in the chat box, would you please do that? That way folks can follow up with you if they think of something later on tonight or tomorrow, or have a friend of a cousin that's interested in applying for the Fulbright program. That they have an advocate, they have somebody that they may be able to touch base with. I'll also throw my contact information into the chat here. It's just lrivers@iie.org. And I'm happy to field any questions you may have. And if I don't know the answer to your question, I'm going to get you in touch with somebody that does. So we're here to help. And we hope that this session has been helpful as well. So with that, Fulbright is an opportunity to go to a country of your choice, pursue a project that you're passionate about, all the while being a cultural ambassador sort of on behalf of the United States. So I encourage you guys to encourage your students to look into this opportunity. And if it's a good fit for you, check it out for yourself as well. Thank you to our speakers today. You guys did a fantastic job, and we look forward to hearing from everyone. Have a great day. Enjoy the rest of your week. Take care.
Thanks so much, Lee.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye, everybody.